teabag for. I didn't want her only perception of marriage to be the one we were giving off. That may have worked for you lot, live the lie and all that, lie back and think of England. I wanted her to realise that it is stronger to walk away from something that doesn't work rather than remain in it simply because you've procreated.
This has all gotten very deep, very quickly. And I just don't think it's an appropriate topic of discussion for a dinner table. It's a private matter.
Come on, Jean.
Let me up here! Everything doesn't stop when you hit 18 or 8 in Lily's case. It's a career with no retirement age. I genuinely think, Lorena, you need someone impartial, like myself, to point out the things you don't want to hear. I can't believe Sandra let you go through this without a fight. If you were my daughter, I'd have grounded that plane until you relented and came off it.
Being a mother is more than just being there for your kids. You don't get a gold cup for serving the most roast dinners.
No, but it's the least you can do, isn't it? To love them is a given. That's the easy bit, the love. You actually have to prove that to your children, though. It's not enough to do whatever you please and then turn around at the end of the day and tell them you love them. You couldn't get away with that in a marriage, as you said, so why should that be any different with your children? Can someone pass me the butter?
That's easy enough to say when you don't have any worries about where the money's coming
That's
from.
not the debate, Sally. I'm not in the clouds. Obviously, for some families and mothers, there are other things to take into consideration. But we've just established Lorena had a stable income, had a marriage, perfect or not, and gave it up to go and find herself in Shanghai.
It wasn't a yoga retreat. It was my career. I put that on hold for 8 years. One of the massively frustrating things in the finance industry, they don't wait for you. It's dominated by men anyway. Even to make it into the field as a woman, you need a clap on the back and preferably as few on the arse as you can manage. They don't even expect you to reach that bracket because by the time you have enough experience to even be interviewed, biologically you should be creating the next generation. You can see it in their eyes when you're climbing the ladder. Can't wait for it. You get all the hints dropping around the place. I'm surprised my assistant didn't get his tape measure out in my office to measure up for his African art collection. Lorena didn't want children. Did not want children.
She didn't want them to disrupt her life.
Fun.
After everything her father and I had done for her. Paying for university, private school. I mean, also she could get this job, mind you.
It's hard to just drop all the ambition once you find you have a life growing inside of you.
No, it's called being an adult.
I didn't want to wake up at 45 when Lily hits 18 and moves out and have absolutely nothing.
I just don't get how you can have a child and not want to dedicate every second to being the best mother. That little person is part of you. God, when I was pregnant with you and your sister and you arrived, what was it for me? Any other ambition? It just faded. And that protectiveness, that instinct, it overpowers you. I mean, it's magic. It really is. Where has that gone? That caretaker attitude.
Well, you really missold the experience. This sounds awful. No, I'm gonna say it.
Please don't feel like you have to.
When I had Lily, one of the first things I thought about was how much I was going to miss my cappuccino on the way to work.
Oh, God, this is what I'm talking about.
And I was angry that everything I'd worked for the past 15, 16 years was just going to be overthrown because I'd had a baby. This expectation that I wouldn't want to check my email again because, thank God, my husband earned enough for us both. So much so that to even think about handing over that child for a while.
Which you did.
Which I did.
Her sister couldn't have been more different.
Oh, here we go.
Even when they were younger. One of them at 3 would point and coo at the other young children. I mean, absolutely fascinated. Whilst the other couldn't have been more disinterested. I mean, looked at them like they were ugly, scrawny, stray dogs. They had puzzles and tools and that little early learning tool set that we bought her.
No prizes for which one I was out of the Holy Trinity.
And in fact, your father and I were most surprised when we found out that you were pregnant.
Well, you had asked me about it almost every time you saw me since I turned 29.
Yes, but we never expected a yes.
Can you see what my mother's doing here? It's quite intriguing, actually. It sets up 2 stereotypes. The maths brain and the mother brain. And those 2 brains, you see, can never integrate. Not in her mind, anyway.
Whether they are stereotypes or not, it's the way they were. we were proud of them both for their accomplishments.
What's your sister called?
Tess.
Tess became a mother quite early on. She married another teacher. She teaches English at a language school, and that was always her ambition, you know, to breed. Now, and she dabbled back in the workplace for a while, but ultimately she decided, as you do, that life was just too busy. And we were there to help out, of course, when we could. And all this time we heard very little from Lorena. I mean, she was holed away in some apartment in Shepherd's Bush.
Canary Wharf.
And we supported them both, in whatever way we could. Obviously, it was easier to support Tess, as she was living nearby, she needed more support. And Lorena was always our little independent number cruncher. Paul and I could not have been more surprised when we get a call one afternoon and she tells us that she's getting married.
It's better than putting it in a text.
We'd only met this man once, mind you.
I didn't know him that well either, to be honest.
Next thing you know, we're at a wedding in some Surrey Hills stately home with more greenery than you could shake a stick at.
Why did you get
Well,
married?
that's a good question.
One with an uninteresting answer.
But there is an answer, I suppose.
Not love, mind you. Not even money. She had that already, and quite a lot of it.
Why does that bother you so much, that I earn so much money? Is that just a generation thing? Is it because I was the main breadwinner?
Paul thought that it might have been a factor in why your marriage didn't work out.
No. The marriage didn't work out because I got married in accordance with my ticking time bomb of a body clock.
We didn't expect you to get married, Lorena. We never asked you to get married. Out of everyone on this godforsaken planet, you were the last person your father and I ever expected to make it walk up the aisle. So wherever this rubbish has come from about us pressuring you into marriage or pressuring you to live up to some sort of expectation is a load of utter bollocks! Bollocks!
I like to think of my marriage as rather a social experiment, Sally, to tell you the truth.
Only you would sacrifice your future to prove a bloody point. Is stubborn. Complete stubbornness.
As a woman, when you reach late 20s, people don't expect you to be married, but they start the general gradual sort of, one of these days you're going to meet someone sort of comment, which is fine. It's just the general banter of that decade in your life. When you reach mid-30s, though, that's the danger time. But quick, you better get on with it. We've been coasting, my then boyfriend and I, casually dating, seriously dating, but not quite wanting to make the commitment. And then, one July, I was on my way back from the office. This woman on the train was coming from hospital. Her baby had been born prematurely. She had this tiny little being in her lap in a car seat, and she was absolutely transfixed with this little prune-like creature. She caught me looking over, so she started talking to me. She went on and on. It was some sort of verbal cleansing for her, I think. It wasn't until we got to London Bridge that she stopped and got up, but she said to me, if someone had told me before this whole experience would have been this horrific, I never would have done it. And I thought this was someone finally saying, yes, this is not all it's cracked up to be. And we're just about to pull into the stop. And at this point, I feel absolutely elated. And then she says to me, but every time I look at him, it's impossible to feel gloomy about it. I arrived home. Andrew, that's my ex-husband, is in the lounge with a ring. And if I'd missed that train or sat on any other seat other than the one next to her, I don't buy into the whole fate thing, but he'd have been off to the jewellers the next day for a refund, but I couldn't turn him down. I thought, if that woman can go through all of that for a bundle of skin that can't even thank her, then think how I would feel. So, I accepted. Fell pregnant within 6 months. And if I saw that woman on the train now, I think I'd slap her.
I take it you didn't feel it then.
They handed me Lily for the first time. She was all purple and sticky. Andrew just melted there and then. This powerful, level-headed leader of a multi-million-pound empire just turned to mush. Now, that was a surprise to me. Talking to others recently, I've heard it's not uncommon, but it simply baffled me how this man could see a baby be pushed out of my lower end and fall in love instantly. A few months before, he hadn't even been sure whether he liked me, let alone wanted to marry me. He handed me this little thing that I just assumed I was going to fall in love with. Nothing. Nothing. That's a lie. Angry. I felt so angry. And Angela was crying, kissing me and kissing her. It was as if God had come down and shown him the holy way. He was on his knees at one point, promising me he was going to be the best father in the world. He was going to love us both forever. He only kept half that promise, but I can't blame him. And he asks me if he can hold her. In one mind, I can't wait for her to be taken away. And in the other, I just want to hold her there for longer. Just to see if the longer I held her for, maybe the feeling would increase.
Sometimes these things take time.
No one ever says that, Lady. No one says that.
We had to work these things out for ourselves as well. No one can tell you how you will feel.
Oh, but they do. All the time. When you hold that little life in your arms, that is half of you. You're gonna wish you'd done it years ago. And everyone always says, oh, it must have been so hard for you to go to Shanghai. And I feel like replying, if it had been hard, I never would have done it. Going to Shanghai was the easiest decision I ever made. Does that make me an awful person?
We all need a reason to get up. You go back to communist Russia and your children were the states. You gave birth and they became the communities to rear. You do what you're good at, whether that be working the fields or maternal care.
I'm not a communist, but that's the setup that once was. Child rearing wasn't a sole job of the mother. If you saw a child misbehave outside your house, you'd clip them round the ear and send them home.
What we've replaced this with is the blame game.
No. That's just the excuse people who neglect their children give. You hear it all the time. It's not our fault, it's the school. It's anyone's fault but theirs. Back in the day, you would be embarrassed if your child was a nightmare. That was shame. Now it's a badge of honour, isn't it? It's all just a conspiracy of bad parents trying to deflect by doing anything other than actually setting boundaries and rearing their offspring. If you can't do it, then don't do it. But dear God, actually take some responsibility for that. I'm not a perfect parent. I didn't go on any parenting courses. I didn't spend hours debating how to be a good mother because I was too busy actually being one. It's not that difficult.
In the animal kingdom, they actually eat their offspring. Research does suggest that children from broken homes are 9 times more likely to become juvenile murderers.
Is this the same research that says burnt toast gives you cancer?
Enjoy.
I wasn't going to say anything. I said to myself before I came that I wasn't going to say anything, but now I'm here, I think I've changed my mind.
Well, if we're having a discussion,
Sally, I know.
what do you want to say?
I think every single word you just said was absolute, utter bullshit.
Every word?
Every single bigoted word.
Oh, I didn't think a single word could be bigoted.
How can you say parenting isn't a blame game?
Parents now negate the responsibility of parenting. Do all of them negate? No, but the vast majority of them.
Give me a number.
Why?
By all means, have an opinion, Vera, but at least have some basis to it.
Well, in that case, give me a number of the amount of parents being blamed for their choices.
Well, I think we could safely count Lorena as the first victim of the night.
This is ridiculous.
If a child gets harmed now, in some unavoidable way, where do we look? You won't be the first person to ask, where were the parents? If a child goes missing, goes out on a bike one day, early evening, and never returns, we spend around 5 minutes giving our sympathies. How dreadful. Those poor parents. And then in the next breath, we question their integrity and ability to parent in the first place. Where were they? I would never have let my child out at that time. I would have grounded that plane. I would have called up God, pledged my life savings, gone on my knees. That would never have happened to my child. Until it does. Parenting is 75% luck, 20% pain, and 5% pleasure. And around 4% of that pleasure is when they're up in bed sleeping and can do no harm.
Some parents do need to be questioned for their actions.
Yes, if you beat your child up, but accidents happen, mistakes happen.
I'm not a perfect parent. I've made my own mistakes.
Didn't pick up enough plain flour from Waitrose.
That's not fair. Most people try to be good parents. If some happen to succeed, I think we should praise that. Not drag everyone down to the lowest common denominator. You don't give everyone an F grade just because one person doesn't hand in their homework.
Actually, according to Jodie, it's a 99 system now.
You must have missed that education meeting, Vera, which is a surprise.
Actually, I'd be intrigued to know what actually constitutes being a good parent.
Exactly.
Don't you start.
No, truly, I'm not even being humorous. I'd love for someone to actually lay out a checklist.
Where has this come from? I never brought you up with all this toing and froing. You just do the job. You grin and bear it. It's an instinct, you know, to care. If people weren't so afraid of actually opening up their hearts once in a while to actually feel, you know, feeling rather than thinking, it wouldn't be in such a crisis.
I'll tell you why we're in a crisis. We're in a bloody crisis because we were raised by parents who couldn't do any better, didn't work, couldn't do enough for you, presented all these idealized, idyllic perceptions of life and marriage and happiness. Do you know that not one sponge my mother has cooked has sunk in the middle?
I have told you 1,000,000 times it's all in how you beat the eggs.
I've never been able to make a good sponge. Never. But I've tried. Tried to recreate the perfect marriage, that went sour. Tried to create a perfect daughter, a complete catastrophe.
Well, that was inevitable when you abandoned her for a conglomeration of men that you have in some twisted manner decided to prove that you are superior to.
You were around all the time. If that's the key to being a successful parent, just simply being there, then why am I the way I am? Why am I the only sponge you made that's sunk in the middle?
Now, see, I think it all went wrong when they decided to take into account 2 salaries when you took out a mortgage. I think I need the move. This is just so typical, though, of your generation. I mean, they turn around now, how about they shouldn't be blamed for their mistakes with this, oh, we're only human. But on the flip side of this devil-may-care attitude, it's all our fault. Oh, if my mother hadn't told me this, if my father hadn't worked all the time, dear God! I mean, it's fine to criticize us, but don't dish it, darling, if you can't take it.
People keep talking about this crisis of masculinity recently. Women gaining all of this, I don't know what to call it. Self-esteem, I suppose. What do you need a man for other than sperm? It's actually a crisis of womanhood.
Womanhood? What is this desperation we have to classify everything?
I'm talking bigger than gender stereotypes here.
What, wife or whore, that sort of thing?
Wow.
Broadly speaking.
Those are not the only options.
We were speaking broadly.
Okay, let's take this.
You asked me for stereotypes. I've given you them.
Wife or whore?
Well, you didn't say they had to be original.
Well, which one am I?
Well, judging by your revelations so far, Lorena, pretty bloody pretty bloody unclassifiable!
The wife or the whore?
It was just a knee-jerk reaction. We don't have to analyze everything to paint me out as some anti-feminist pent-up housewife that you are so desperate to mark me out as. Bit close to home for you, this, is it?
Vera, you don't need any help from me. You're doing that all yourself. Wife or whore?
This is ridiculous.
I'm not being ridiculous! Why is it that when anyone says anything just the least bit controversial, it's suddenly ridiculous? It's not 1949 anymore, Vera. You can't talk to me, you know. All this bullshit. Couldn't keep in touch, didn't know what to say. That's all I've had my whole life, with whatever tragedy or circumstance that doesn't fit the norm. Did Jean tell you how I found her? I've known. Yes. I've known for years. How sick is that? I was so worried I wouldn't fit in my own life. It was better to pretend my husband wasn't sleeping with the woman 3 doors down. Not because I gave a shit about my marriage, but because it wasn't fucking convenient. Didn't fit with the timeline. Work, marry, have grandchildren, die. Well, let's not lie to ourselves, ladies. That's the journey we're all on, isn't it? The one our mothers did, and their mothers before them. And we were watching Fatal Attraction one day. And it was at the bit where Michael Douglas tells his wife he's had an affair. And I don't know why I said it. But I turned to him and I said, if you ever do that to me, Don, I will kill you. I will fucking kill you. And he just carried on watching. And then when it gets to the bit where she's just floating in the bath, just this one trail of blood out of those lifeless eyes, he says, shall I do it for you? I could do it for you. I replied, is she pregnant, Don? And he says, not yet. But she wants to be. Well, there's been letters. The odd phone call about a school report. A decree nisi for unreasonable behaviour. That was generous. But I haven't seen him since. But I never could quite get over was how much she looked like Glenn Close. The eyes. Absolutely lifeless. I think I'd rather be the whore
I'd rather be the wife.
Why?
I don't know, I just would.
What kind of an answer's that? You must know.
Because at least you get the children. What does she get? The man, if she even wants the man. The whore's just a wolf that takes bites and then moves on. At least as a wife, you have something to live for.
Jean?
Sally, I'm exhausted.
No. We're here now. This is what we wanted, isn't it? A good old catch-up. All the girls back together again like the good old days. Wife or whore.
Either
way you get fucked! And that's the common denominator, ladies, isn't it? The wife is the whore and the whore is the wife, and it's all just a waiting game to see who wins. If the competition even starts at all.
I don't know what you're trying to prove, Sally. What do you want me to say? Yes, we've all been crucified. Yes, we all sold out.
Do you know if your husband was having an affair?
She's crazy.
I may be many things, Vera, but crazy isn't one of them.
I would know.
Would you?
Jesus, I just said I would!
I'm just interested.
Why? Why are you so interested by what our husbands may or may not get up to? Just because yours couldn't control himself doesn't mean you can take your big paintbrush and smudge all our marriages into the same mess yours was in. I know Brian pretty much inside out after all this time. I could tell if he was having an affair. Do you not think we've both done our fair share of snooping these past 40 years? Checking the post every now and then, ringing the office to make sure he really is there.
What are you hoping to find? Normal. Does it just give you the slightest satisfaction to know your suspicions were right?
Sick!
No, it's not. I thought it was for a long time. Everything good that ever happened to me, I wanted to destroy. Every relationship, every job, every friendship, all for that one moment where I could say, ha! I was right! The only person I didn't want that to happen with was Dom. I've been wondering for years why, especially since I knew what an erratic, sexually untamable philanderer he was when I met him. It's you. It's all of you. I'm not letting him off. He's a bastard, always was and always will be. You were my friends. And that relationship to me was more important than even my marriage. Maybe it wasn't the same for you. They were the only relationships I had that I was bound to by a contract or not. Not one phone call. Not one message. You knew my husband had left me with a 4-year-old. You knew I would be working at ABE for the rest of my goddamn life trying to pay a mortgage off on my own, and I heard nothing from a single one of you. You know what? I think that was more painful than waiting outside my own apartment while Dom's Glenn Close looked like he dressed himself.